Hello everyone. I need to disable that wait room so people can get in. There we go. And Doug is just, I think Doug is just getting his phone plugged in, so he should join us here in just a moment. It's so good to see some familiar names and faces here in the audience. Thank you so much for joining us. We're in for a real wonderful presentation today by Mr. Doug Willow Jr. So yes, I hope you can close out anything else you've got going on and be with us in the moment here as we address what can be very difficult subject matter. So Doug should be here with us shortly. We were having a little bit of technical difficulties this morning, but we managed to get him plugged in. So I was glad that that worked out. But great to see everyone. I want to welcome you all. Let's make sure we've got everybody connected to audio here. I know sometimes there's a few. It looks like Eddie is still connecting. Peggy and a few others are still getting plugged in. Let's give them just a couple of minutes to get settled in virtually. But it's good to see everyone, and just want to again welcome you all to this behavioral health webinar for February. And there, right on cue, Mr. Doug Willow Jr. will be presenting today. I just have a few introductory slides to go through with you all, and then I'm going to turn the floor, excuse me, over to Doug to get us started off in the right way, and we've got a small slide deck that he'll walk us through as well. So, my name is Steve Steiny. I'm one of the managers here at the American Indian Alaska Native Addiction Technology Transfer Center, located at the University of Iowa. As I mentioned, I have with us Doug Willow Jr. He is here today for our behavioral health webinar, Addressing Grief and Loss in Native American Culture. And Doug and I were speaking yesterday, and we kind of decided to call this part one because I think we may circle back to this topic later in the year in another webinar or even a standalone webinar, and maybe even have a series if there's enough interest. So, but we're going to call this part one and go from there. So just a couple of introductory slides. Most of you are aware that this event is brought to you by the National American Indian Alaska Native ATTC. We are part of a larger ATTC network made up of 10 regional centers, a national Hispanic and Latinx center, as well as our national coordinating office located at the University of Missouri. As I mentioned, I'm broadcasting to you live from the University of Iowa. That is where our center is located. We're in the College of Public Health. So we've got some overcast today, but it's still pretty mild here. So I'll take those mild temps. Again, most of you are aware this project is supported and funded by SAMHSA. The content of today's presentation is developed by the presenter, and the opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of SAMHSA, HHS, or the American Indian Alaska Native ATTC. Following today's event, we will reach out to you via email. We'll ask and give you an opportunity to complete a short survey. The survey is not mandatory, but we have added a couple of short answer questions to this brief survey. We really value your feedback, especially feedback in your own words. We'd love to hear back from you. It'll give Doug and I a chance to decide whether we should, do a part two or maybe a continued series. But this survey is short. It can't be linked to you personally in any way. and you can skip any questions that you'd like on the survey. But I'll post a link in the chat box today if you want to try and fill it out at the conclusion of today's broadcast, or as I said, we'll reach out to you via email and give you another opportunity to complete that short survey. We're also going to offer 1.5 NADAC approved CEUs for this broadcast. You can use that certificate of attendance with your licensing or certification entity in your respective state. And lastly, we will also make, I'll check with Doug, but we'll try and make a PDF copy of these slides today available, and we are recording this. So we will include a link to our YouTube archive, which has all of our recorded events listed there. In case you've got someone that wasn't able to join us today, you could reference that and they can watch it at a later time. I know we're gathered here virtually today, but we would like to take a few moments to acknowledge the land and pay respect to the indigenous nations whose homelands were forcibly taken and inhabited. Please take a few moments to read this land acknowledgement that was created by 3 former members of our team, Ella and Keely Driscoll and Sean Bear, from the Meskwaki and Winnebago nations, respectively. Thank you. Just as a reminder, you are currently muted. We're hoping to have a little time at the end today where you can unmute and maybe ask a question or have a comment for Doug. And then if you also would like to utilize the chat box or the hand raise feature in your Zoom bar, we can circle back. I'll try and watch the chat as Doug is presenting today. But without further ado, I want to introduce my colleague and my friend, Mr. Doug Willow Jr. He is Cheyenne River Sioux and comes to us with a lot of experience as a horse healer, and he is a first language Lakota speaker and has been in long-term recovery now for 35 years. So Doug and I both got sober in the same year. So I thought that was interesting too when our paths crossed. But Doug, I want to turn the floor over to you, and really happy to have you here. So as Doug introduces himself a bit and gets us started, I'm going to transition to the next set of slides. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Steve. I'll just say briefly a little bit about my introduction. Yeah, toka ke tona ya hip ke hawaya wopira chicha. Yeah, o khonju oyate imataha. Masfegna ke oyate imataha. Mita te Douglas Widow Senior ja. Mita ina ke ha Louise Doni go ja. Na teater ta na chachma pe na Lakota pe sa na spema ke ka chaon le ampet ke due gas Lakota se sletas wana unkato na la. I'm originally from Cheyenne River, a little place called Red Scuffle. My parents, my father's side is widow. There's some brothers in amongst the enemy and Bill's Fire, Brown Thunder. My mom's side is Lone Eagle, Kills Alive, Yellow Shield. So with that, I'm happy to be here. Had some adversities this morning in the last minute, but I think I made my my kola, my brother over there. He made him sweat because I couldn't get on. Phone was acting up. but but other than that, it's a good day. And one of the first things that I want to talk about, and as we go, if somebody has a question, I'm open to stopping and answering that question. So if anything pops up, Steve can stop me. One of the first things I would like to talk about before we begin is a lot of our the language, a lot of the stuff has our interpretation of the language is it got lost in the translation, and so that's why certain things get are the way they are today, and hardly anybody talks about that, or you don't learn about it in school. One of the first things I would like to address is that with the pandemic, that happened with COVID, I know that we lost a lot of people, especially our elders. But a long time ago, one of the things that we went through was the rations, and a lot of the stories that was told. My grandmother, my auntie, her name is Louise Montley. She was a storyteller and she was a midwife and also a healer. So she would tell about stories about going after rations. They would get up early in the morning, head down there, get their stuff, and on the way back, it got dark. So they would camp, and they would encounter different things. So the rations today, back then, if you were practicing our ways, you didn't get ration. So a lot of our people, they starved to death. And one of the other things that hit us during at that time was tuberculosis. And they wiped us out. So this pandemic that we went through, similar to what we went through, but back in that time, it was a lot worse. There was a lot of our relatives passed away from starvation and tuberculosis. And today, all the things that happened back in the day is still happens today. An example would be and during the rations, if you had somebody that knew of somebody practicing their way or whatever, then they would tell on those people. And what they would do is they would not give them rations, and those other people that did the telling on, they would get more. And so those things still happen today. We still tell on each other and try to, you know, get more stuff from people hurting. So, the way things were a long time ago, today it's still happening. So the stories of how not to be and stuff like that is still very much alive today. And one of the other things that I want to talk about is the layers of generational grief. So as I was writing this, I was looking at not just the native, but this addresses to the non-natives also. So I'll share a story about my own journey about coming to that realization of those traumas. Years ago, I was finding myself and went on a hill. When I first started, like I said, I spoke the language. Language was the language was my first language, and I was I thought things were really going good until my grandma passed. And once she passed, then I struggle with grief and anyway, so that's when I started to experiment with alcohol and marijuana. Anyway, so I sobered up, went to a treatment center, and while I was at that treatment, there was a ceremony, and went and had a quite experience. And so anyway, I was sober for about a year. I was going to AA, was going to church and all that good stuff. And after I've been sober for a while, probably about 4 years, still struggling. Until was how they call it, Humbleta, they call it. Is short for Hampi. Ble is the journey. Chia is to cry or lamenting. So anyway, I went to go do that, and while I was up there, it was tough, and the person that was supposed to put me up never showed up, and so while I was there, I said, well, we're at a sacred place, and I said, well, I'll just go do it myself. And anyway, while I was up there, because third day, I started, your body starts to, start cramping. Anyway, I was really struggling, and all of a sudden I could see, all the discrimination, all the stuff that the non-natives did to our people. Wounded Knee, Sand Creek Massacre, everything all coming. And at that point, I was saying, well, maybe when I'm done from here, I'll go do something. And really struggle. That early morning, those of you that witnessed that, early in the dawn, the moon was out, early morning star was out. Looking at that, it's real beautiful. I said to myself, I think I would choose to live and try to work on that. Over the years of my sobriety, every day I try to work on that. And the discriminations that happen, today, back in the day, it was almost no comparison to what our ancestors went through today. And today, most of that discrimination comes from our own people. We do it to ourselves. So, like I said, we whatever happened a long time ago, we still go through those. And even basketball games, especially in South Dakota, there's the refs are not favorable to non-natives. So I tell other people, you guys can make that change by going and go be a certified ref, stuff like that. And so when you take a look at that, you could, be a victim, be in that victim role, or you could use that as a strength. And we went through a lot. And probably will still go through a lot, but we find it in ourselves, keep going. So one of the things I was contemplating to share, but I think I will. I'm gonna, well, before I do that, I'm gonna burn some sweetgrass. I lost my Sonny, my wife. September. So I know what all goes with this grief. To find that strength. Keep going. And one of the things that I've noticed that as Native people, we have that nehinja. So nearest you can explain is anxiety. Nehinja. And so it's that fear of whatever, and one of the things that people don't talk about and today's treatment society is that just what I talked about with the layers of that trauma. We all have to face it, and if we don't, our childhood trauma stuff, will lead to anxiety. I used to go to school down in Phoenix, and I would travel home, and I saw a lot of semi wrecks, and a lot of that one was I was the first one on the scene, and we couldn't find him, and it was pretty graphic, but I stayed there till people came, instead of prayer. And anyway, as part of that anxiety, if I was driving, trying to pass a semi, and that semi would come over into my lane, then I would get that anxiety, and then I would slow down and get behind that truck again till I started to work on that. Then today it doesn't bother me. I'll go around the semi. So every day we have to work through those. The other one is ma kuje or kujapi. We would make ourselves sick. We're dealing with grief. First off, we would not eat, not drink water, and have a hard time sleeping. And so going into the Washigla, the language that Washigla means, however, chose to, your relative chose to go home, being in that Washigla is mourning, and we would, as a people here, we would make we would take that like a revenge, and so like for myself, for my Hassani, my Hafsa, what I would do is people talk about mental health, and as Native people, they at my work they would say, I went to go take care or help with somebody who was suicide or anything like that, they would say, you can't do that. But as Native people, we we're there, and we know how to take care of those. So and that, as far as that suicide, we're not allowed to. Certain people would talk about it, but for me, I would talk about it, because I made a stand to help people that are going through that. Because if we at an early age, if we're not taught to take care of our own feelings and stuff like that, we learn to put a mask on, and so I would take a look at that, have use it as a revenge to stand up against it. And like I said, I was a fluent speaker, but as far as this game that we chose on it, means for a lot of years I thought about we chose on it meant health, and but until I went through this grief, like I said, I lost I lost my grandma, and I don't remember too much about my grandpa, but uh, and my mom, my dad, sisters, brothers. But losing a outside to bring you to your knees. It's different. So with that, we chose on you means how well you bounce back in that grief. That's what we chose on you means. And Chante Yapa having irregular heartbeat. It's probably in October somewhere. I went in to the doctor for something else, and they found out that I was having irregular heartbeat. So I was hooked up to EKG. Come to find out that that was from not sleeping or eating, drinking water. So when we go through that grief, we have to make ourselves drink water. What they usually do too is they'll give you something to go to sleep. But we have our own medicines also to help us with that grief. So there's that's similar to the 5 stages of grief, but that's what I just talked about. That was the native version, but one of the ones that I forgot about was the blame. The blame is there when something happens. Then there's blame and gossip. Those are still in our communities, in our villages today. So in most treatment facilities, the historical trauma is not really addressed. And we try to address that as much as we can. So at this point, is there any questions or comments before I move on?
There's
Hey,
been
I
some-
have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so I was wondering if you could give me your perception on, do you think that generational grief is the same thing as historical trauma or intergenerational trauma, or do you think those are all different?
No, they're pretty much the same. Just like how I was talking about when I was on the hill, when all that hit me, I had to take a look at it and deal with it, and not just me, but our children. Even 100 years from now, or 200 years, our people are still gonna have to deal with that one by one.
Okay, and do you think that like our traditional ceremony of wiping the tears, do you think that that could be effective towards the generational grief and trauma?
Yes, yes. Because that's one of the things that I wanted to talk a little bit about is I think it's kind of down. Wow. Anyway, when we're taught to grieve properly, a lot of people will just get to that point and they won't say, so that like wiping of the tears, releasing that spirit. You take a look at those, and all of those are they're good. But a lot of times, if we're not ready, then we're not ready. But everybody puts a timeline on things and saying that you have to do this, you have to do that. But as me going through this, I'll be ready when I'm ready. So, with that, is there any more questions?
We had one just come up just as you were. I know Candy wanted to make a comment, and then there's another question that just came up. Candy, did you want to make that comment that you made in the chat, or will that suffice? April asked Doug if there are 5 stages of grief.
There is, but I came up with my own, and that's what I was going through right there. And in the language, it's not so much my own, but that's how as natives, that's what would hit first is Nehincha Ya'un. You be in that anxiety. I mean, then you'll try to make yourself sick, and then most people in mourning, you would have, if we were all a tight net, like how we were a long time ago, whoever's in grieving, you would protect them. You would, but today it's not that way. Not too long ago there was gossips going around that, about me, and one of the things as Native people, or for myself, is I have I not only speak the language and dance the dance and all that good stuff. I have values, and that's what's missing today in our language, in our culture. Is that value, and that value is, when you're grieving, you're walking that way. You're not going to powwows or anything like that, and but today is real different. So yeah, those are the stages of grief that I put up. So if not, I'll start going down to how to take care of those. But before I move down there, I want to talk a little bit about my grandma. She was 97, 98 years old when she passed away, and she lived along the call it Cherry Creek, along that, and real nice grandma. And when she would talk to me, she would talk to me like a man would, and so I wouldn't be talking like how a woman would. And I thought that was awesome that she was able to do that. And before moving on, one of the things that I learned from her is when Grandpa died, our names, like my name is Guiasloha, and what that means is we as a woman, Sloha is like, you know, getting down on your hands and knees and crawling, you know, or peeking. And long time ago, they really watched the daughters, the women, and so the only time they didn't when they went after water. So when Grandma was getting water, Grandpa would sneak up on her and watch her, and so that's how I got my name, was Riaslo, huh? And Grandma was so awesome. She was so wise that, you know, today it's awesome when you think about people that go to get their doctorate degree versus, you know, people like my grandma. And even, you know, even today, like all the culture and the language and stuff that you know I know is probably equivalent to somebody with a doctorate degree, but nobody looks at it like that. But anyway, Grandma was so smart that when Grandpa died, instead of grieving all the time and really feeling bad, like she named me like that, so that was some of the stuff that he did. And so, but she kept him alive through us. So when I walked in to see her, she would say, yeah, Sloan. Yeah, glad you came to see me, you know. It's like that, you know. She kept him alive through us. And you know, today, as we grieve, that's really tough to do, but you have to think about stuff like that to be able to keep going. So with that, if there's no more questions, I'll move on into the breakdown of Inipi.
Doug, I've got a slide up. Did you want to talk a little bit about working as a language teacher?
Yeah.
There's some good points
Let me
there.
move this in. Okay, working as a language teacher here in Isanti, I would probably get like anywhere from 12 to 17 people sign up for the language. And as we get going, we start to talk about different, you know, things that happen as far as Native people. And well, midway through, they'll come up and they'll say, "Is there, you know, can I take this another time?" And they'll start getting angry from hearing all the what happened to us as Native people, and they didn't like it and they didn't know how to process it, and so they would drop out and they would leave angry, and some wouldn't come back, you know, and some would, but those ones that stayed and worked through it, man, they were they were speaking like they were fluent speakers most of their life, and even teaching that, you would need to teach the language from the right side of your brain rather than the left, because if you teach the language from your left side of your brain, you won't remember. But if you use the right side of your brain, then it'll stay with you. So we have to learn to make that switch, just like that teepee that has that twist up there. So when we go to school, and learn your English language and math and all those good things. We have to use our linear side of the brain, but also for the language and all the stuff that goes with the culture, we have to use our right side of the brain. So a lot of them will get upset. So we all need to come to terms with that hurts of the past and the present. And those things that we need to come to terms with, that is the loss of identity, culture, language, loss of children, spirituality, and the big one is the land. And so those are realities of trying to teach the language. I since then moved away from teaching the language, but really enjoyed it. Got to see those ones that stayed, got to see them flourish. It's awesome, and I still see them today. So, okay. Okay. One of the things I use for plants, and I'm willing to share this only like the weight is like a vow, because we are protectors of the Jiwanka, the earth. And so I'm gonna share this, that you won't try to take advantage of that and use it for money and stuff like that. But one of the things I use for grief is called bee balm. In our language, it's called Pajuta Wastimna. And when I first came here, people were asking me, what do you use that for? Is that love medicine? and I never heard that. But when I said that, no, I said this is for grief, and it'll help you to get past some of those trying times. And it's called, like I said, it's called bee balm. I'm not sure the scientific name of it is. And the other one is the Cansasa. Right around October, the first part of October, yeah, bee balm. First part of October, my oldest daughter, had her 18th birthday, and it was difficult. And then I had mine, and on the 17th, and so it was tough, not being able to sleep, eat, and still in shock. And anyway, I had a friend from California. Years ago, we used to Sundance. Said, hey, how you doing? So I said, it's pretty tough, man. Says, well, I'm gonna call. So we did a Zoom, visited a little bit, and said, you have your chnoopa? I said, yeah. So can you get it? I got it. I said, I'm gonna pray. She said, I want you to load your pipe and pray too. So I did. Well, that chnoopa is a pipe. And prayed, and I paused and I gave it to my children. They took it to have an 18-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 10-year-old. And that's there's something inside that Cansasa that made me feel better. And I know I'll never probably get over it or whatever, but there's that red willow's got some medicine in there that really helped me. And so since then I was able to go back and run sweat again. And this weekend I'm going home to help with a relative that passed. So I really think that that relative that called me and helped me to put my grief aside to help others. And since then, I could tell where I'm at. And some days, like yesterday, was Valentine's Day. It was a tough day. Remembering what we did, last year. And so those are the two that I would use to help with the. And what you would do is you would dry it, the bee balm. You would dry it, and then when it's dry, you would burn it just like sage. Or if you're going into the sweat lodge in Yipi, you would put it on the rocks. How can you connect with culture? If you find yourself unsure about connecting with culture, you're not alone. Reconnecting with culture can be the most powerful, meaningful thing that you could do for yourself. And a lot of times, like having all this anxiety, whatever things that will go into the doctor to get help with, is somewhere, someplace we've got disconnected with not only ourselves, but with Onjimanka. One of the things, especially right now, with that red willow. See, we are more connected to the earth than we think. That red willow, between, I'm gonna say December, January. Within those times, it's really difficult because it's almost like if you was newlyweds and you had your first child, and they're crying, and no matter what you do, you can't get them to settle down. And so you would say, here, give it to the man, your turn, so they'll walk with the baby, bounce it, and then they can't figure it out. And then so they start getting into it. It's kind of like that during this time. what's happening is the Onchimaka, the earth is teething because of that new medicine and the new everything is coming. So Onchimaka is teething, so you can feel that uneasiness, especially right at this time. So now's the time to go out and pick that Cansasa. You would get it and you would scrape it. And I did that with my children. Matter of fact, my little guy, he was texting me, and I brought some back, and he was texting me. He said, "Dad, when are we gonna do this?" So I said, as soon as I'm done, I get home. And sure enough, they were all out here. So we sat down and we scraped it. And as we were scraping it, we remembered their mom and remembered the good times. And so each one of them, had their own batch. But when we were done, we put it all together, and I thanked them for helping me do that. And so when we do that, when you're scraping that, it soothes our nachi, it soothes our spirit, so we don't get ourselves into trouble. And I work in the IOP, and majority of them I ask during those winter months where a lot of them got sent to prison or they got in trouble during those times. And so by learning to do that, that helps not us but our children be able to soothe that spirit and to be able to use that, because today when we make tobacco ties, we would use commercial tobacco. I always ask, what would it be like if we use that Cansasa to make a chani pakta ties or flags, prayer flags, and so that Cansasa really is awesome, relative to help with our families. We know the power of the language is in our own well-being. Language gives us a perspective on our own lives and the world around us. It is our heart, at the heart of our connection with culture. But it's okay if we don't speak our own language. There's many options today: enrolling in a language class, downloading an app, learning your own language. Start with a few words and it gets easier. And you could really, like today, there's a lot of challenges they put out there. People will say, well, we're going to walk this much. I always tell people, I challenge you to learn to speak your language, learn the culture, and don't let it stop there, to be able to live it, walk it too. Yeah, it's awesome to, and this language, a culture, you could use it as a prevention also. Okay, you can go into the next slide. All right. At this point, I wanted to talk about and when I usually do this too, when I tell stories, what I would do is I would smudge and I would turn the lights down. And what I usually like to do is I didn't know what it was called, but later on they're saying, "Oh, that's guided imagery." But I would do the smudge, turn the lights down, have them close their eyes so they could visualize. You could visualize the story, just like you're visualizing what's being told in the language. So if you guys want to do that, I'll give you time to do that. Just make yourself comfortable. Close your eyes, take a deep breath. Try to settle yourself down. And long time ago, how they would say, or my grandma used to say when she started her story, she'll say, "La cosa le said, I'm gonna speak in a sacred manner, That's when you knew you had to pay attention. Anyway, there was these 4 brothers. They were living by themselves. This lady wanted to go and help them. And so she found their camp and got there, and the oldest one, he went out and he never came back. And this other one went out to look for him. He never came back. The third one went. Same thing, he never came back. And the last one, the sister begged him to go. He said, "It's my duty. I have to." He left. So she was sitting on this hill, grieving. She found this little ant. She put it in her mouth. She was moving it around. She accidentally swallowed it. It's like some of us, we swallowed a penny or a quarter. Anyway, she became pregnant because that, they're alive. They're secret. She was pregnant and she had a boy. He was born. He came of age and he says, "I'm gonna go look for my uncles." She didn't want him to go, but he told her, he said, "That's the reason why I came." And those of you that heard that story, that was Ian Hoxie or Ian Hoxila came. And so he asked, which way did they go? And so she told him. As he was going that way, he ran into 4 different birds. They were telling him which way to go. That last one, that bird told him what was to be expected. He's gonna run into this lady, this grandma. She's gonna want things from him, but to be careful. And she says, after you do what you was here to do, they instructed him how to make a lot. So sure enough, he got there, and that grandma welcomed him in and made soup for him. She asked him, she said, Takosa, she said, Umaki, she said, can you help me? He said, hi, he said, Takuyachi, so what do you need help with? And she said, her back really hurted, and he wanted her to step on it. And while he was gonna do that, he noticed that there was some spikes on her back. So this, she turned himself into a boulder and he rolled over her back. And neutralized her, so he wasn't killed or put like his uncles were. And he did what he was instructed. He grabbed all 4 of those 4 bundles, brought them back, and he built that lodge. When you're building that lodge, there's 12 or 13 poles that go bottom. Those are the moons, 12 moons within that year. And he went in there and he was instructed to light 10 eons. Each time each door those bundles will move. Finally, at the last one, the uncles woke up, brought him back, and that's how the Inipi came, people. So if you could put that Inipi up, Steve. Okay. The NI is the life near, like you're breathing. The I is E. I is pronounced with like a E. I is that source. But within those 2, that's you're getting life. So when you heat up the stones and you really have to know the creation story to understand that. So when you heat up the stones and bring it in and you pour water on it, so when that steam hits, making you breathe. And that PI is plural. People are doing it, giving life, or receiving life. So that's what Inipi means. And like that, if you do it enough, that's how you're gonna find yourself. And that's how the Inipi came, and like I shared with the Ha is short for Ahampi. And Ble is going, or that journey. And Chea is crying. You put those together, it's Hambletia. Or if you're Dakota, it'll be Hambadecha. And while you're up there, all these things will start to come at you. Whatever they may be. Hurts of the past, trauma, being left or given away, or as growing up, especially as Native people, if we got spanked or anything like that. We grow up not feeling wanted. So when you're up there, you're making a relative with that what bothers you. So when you come off of there, you're made whole. So your pratin, your heart, and your gut instinct are all back in line. When those get back in line, then you can call your nahi back. That's why we have name. That's what then they call that nahi topi. And if you don't do that, if one of those is offline, you can call your spirit back, but as soon as it comes back, it doesn't like what your body is going through, and it'll leave. And so this is how I was able to put those things aside and to be able to still carry on regardless of all the adversities that I'm going through. Even by coming here, I was told to leave my work and find a place. So I was lucky. I still had my computer from my teaching class, and soon it all worked. It all came into place. And so early this morning, I prayed, and I prayed that somebody would get touched here to be able to heal and to be able to help others heal. Because when we came into this world, we brought a gift. That gift is to help other people. Well, with that old story, that old message that was told to us, we're not good enough, or maybe nobody wants me, and we'll overcompensate with that when we get sober. Like a part of my life, I was running in nappies all the time, and I was at home. That's because I was being wanted over there. But after a while, I learned to put boundaries up and put limitations on, and know your own body. Like a lot of people would say, men don't cry, but we do. And you pay attention to your body. And so, is there another slide? Or is that it?
It's that last slide, Doug, when you broke down the Tunkashla.
Oh, okay. Cool is birth. And so like I said, that creation story is in that creation story that the creator made everything and shriveled up into a rock. And so that's the beginning of time. Is old or gone, and versus today. So today we'll heat up those rocks and bring them in, and we'll receive that blessing from the Tsunkuya out there. And that Shila is the whole deer. So when you put those together, it's Tunkashila, and that's who we would call the creator. And so in the language, you break up the language, then you understand why it's that way, because we're describing someone. And then with that Tunkashla, most guys think that that means grandfather, and so we call our any old grandpa, we call him Tunkashla, but that's not so. There's only one and within your Tioshpai, within your family, not your immediate family, but your aunts and uncles, there's one that's carrying the language, the culture. He's living that way. And he would be the one that's called Tunkashila. And I know I didn't put it on the slide, but and I feel that this is important. But you know, and it's up to you. And I mean, but this is how I do it. When I'm gonna set the fire for the stones, I would lay 4 or 5 logs north and south. So like a long time ago, I used to go look for our ancestors out there. And majority of our people, if they're Native American, they're laying north and south. So I would put the logs that way. And then I would put another set of logs going east to west. And then the last one I would put back the other way, north and south. Then I would put my rocks on. By doing that, you're not using so much wood. And each one of those layers, that first one is just like how I'm talking about that grandpa that carried the culture, that grandpa that carried the language, walked it. That represents those guys, the ones that live it. And the other set of logs are laying the other way. It's those ones that are trying to be like them. And then the ones that are on top, those are the ones that are relatives that are still lost, that we're trying to bring home. Then you offer tobacco to the Kukumiate, the Rock Nation, asking for that blessing. And even some people won't, they won't use a lighter. To me, it's as long as it's light and it's ready. So it's awesome, that way of life. So I'll leave that open for any questions at this time or comments. I wasn't able to read all the comments.
Thank you so much, Doug. Yeah, there were some comments coming in, a lot of appreciation. There was a couple of clarification questions. Someone had asked earlier about the use of the lodge. But if anyone in the audience there has a question, feel free to use your hand raise feature or just unmute and share with us. We have about 10 minutes left for questions. I'm looking for that question that she may not still be on here. Oh, there was a question about, I think Lestina asked about a time frame for grief. Traditionally, what is the time frame for grief? Am I asking that question right, Lestina?
Yes. Good afternoon, Doug. Yeah, I tried to look to my elders, like for insight and direction, like to our traditional ways as opposed to Western ways, because I know we have our own ways of healing and we have our own ways of dealing with things. And for me, those ways have helped me too. So my question was, like traditionally, and I only know some things from like old historical accounts about some stuff about grieving, but I wanted to know, was there a time frame or how did that go traditionally for grief?
Usually it all depends on where you come from. Like, for example, in some places, they would say 4 days, and after that, no more, because if you keep crying, then you're gonna make those ones that left stay. But for myself, in my family, what we're shooting for is a year. We would, like, every day, we would put food out, and coffee, water, whatever, and whatever we eat, we'll put it out. Then when that year is up, what we'll do is we'll dig a small hole, probably enough to put some stuff in there, like majority of us cut our hair, and we didn't get a chance to put it in there with her. What we'll do is at that time we'll put it in there and put wasna. There's different kinds of wasna. There's wakamiza, corn wasna, and whatever you cut hair, ties, whatever you would put it in that hole. Then you would cover it, and then usually right at that time, then somebody would come and help to do that wiping out a tear ceremony for you. You'll offer your chanumpa and water, and wipe your tears, and that's you're letting go of the the one that you cherished, and then so we'll never get over the ones that we've lost, but we'll kind of somewhat start living, because we have to, especially for our children. Thanks for asking.
Doug, there was another question that came in. Dr. Bays had asked about the use of the horses, and I know that's a big question, but I know we had addressed that in a previous webinar, but maybe just touching on how you have used the horse in addressing grief with your relatives. I hope I'm asking that right, Dr. Bays.
At first it's easy to help somebody else, but when you're going through yourself, it's tough. But like I said, with the horses, they're the ones that are sacred. They're the ones that are the clinicians. They're the ones that so that when that happened for us, it's really hard for me to go there, but they're part of my family, and I had to go there. And as soon as I got there, they knew, and each one came up. The oldest one came up first, and that was my main horse. He came over, greeted me. I told him, and then the next one, and the lead mare, she came last, and man, I really cried. So they know how where you're at, and she gave me a hug. Said that I'd be okay. So I go out there every day to see them, feed them. and I talk to them, and they're awesome. They're helping me, or not me, just me, but my kids, children. They're helping us move forward. It's difficult, so they're awesome. It's almost like telling you about going into the sweat lodge. I could tell you, try to explain the best way I can, but until you go in yourself, man. So,
It's been it's been great. I really appreciate folks staying on. We are near the bottom of the hour, maybe just a little past, but wanted to honor everyone's time. Again, I want to really thank Doug for sharing some very personal information, but also some really important information about his own experiences and his work with the patients that he helps. So we're going to look for feedback from all of you. If you have a chance and can respond to a brief survey, I'm going to post that in the chat box. We'd love to hear back from you. If you don't have a chance to do that today, we'll get a hold of you via email, and we'll make a copy, a PDF copy of these slides available too. I'll check with Doug, and we'll decide about that. So we did record this event, so some of you asked about that. We do have a YouTube archive that holds all of our recorded events, and I know Doug did a two-part series. Was it last spring, Doug, on the use of horses and healing?
yeah, last spring.
Yeah, last spring. So maybe we'll do that again, or a variation of that in a follow-up to this broadcast. So again, I want to say, Wopila Yelo, Doug, my friend and my colleague, thank you so much, and for everyone else that stayed on. Till we see you again, stay safe, stay healthy, and most importantly, stay connected.
Steve, can I ask you a question?
Yes, please do.
How you,
Serena,
brother?
it's good to see you on. Please
It's
do.
good to
Yes.
see you too. Pila mai Serena tate utua ke machiapi. Lakolia na recha ze wamaka na ke chanti queen. Thank you, Tiblo Douglas, for sharing. I always love coming to your sessions, your webinars. And thank you for sharing what you have. So thank you for that. I have one question, and I know a coworker is probably on here. For grief, for the Lakota, I know you said the grief depends between 4 days and a year. Our elders tell us that they give us the time limit for that. But to implement ceremony with the Inipi, how would a woman go about doing that if she had, like, I have a sweat lodge on my land, like to promote that healing?
Do you run it?
One of my co-workers on here who is a cultural advisor, we both do.
Okay. It all depends on who you bringing in with, especially with grief. You won't know where they're at, if it's very new or if it's if it's, because a lot of times if we don't grieve properly, that's why most of us, if there's a wake or funeral, we don't want to go. And we don't want to go because that's gonna bring something. So but with that, what I've learned is that we're the ones that is carrying that trigger. So we can't blame everybody, but so it'd be good to find out some of those medicine. And I know that I caught a few. I was trying to read them, but I couldn't catch it. But some people say that Pejuta or stamina is if you have some of that, that will help them with that, because we were taught not to cry or grieve, or so as soon as you put that on the rocks, as soon as they smell that, that will come. And so you would let them know that that's a safe place to be able to let it out. And that begins the healing process. Then that Cansasa, you give them some of that to smoke it, and then offer them water. And always encouragement is washigla na dito kashite.
We definitely use it for our substance and alcohol. Well, we will start be using it, but we just built it up in August. So I'm a substance counselor in the Indian Health Service of Chicago, and so a coworker of mine that I'm telling, he may be on here, but yeah, so we'll be starting it up again in the spring to use the NIPI. Definitely.
Wow,
I'll be reaching out to you both. Doksha.
Thank you so much, Serena. Thank you. It's great to see you. And yeah, we maybe we can do some work together this year to promote some of the things you're doing, and would love to do that. So let's stay in touch. Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Well, again, let's just, before we close, any other thoughts or questions for Doug or in general? Thank you so much again, Doug, for spending this time with us. It's been very, very good. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of the week, and we'll see you again soon. Won't say goodbye. We'll just say until our paths cross again. So take care, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay connected. Dokcha.